So you've been thinking about trying mushrooms, you've been thinking about trying psilocybin. You've had, I don't know, a reason. Why are you thinking about trying psilocybin? Did your friend tell you it would help? Did you read about it? Did you see a YouTube video about it? But how are you going to go about it? Where are you going to find it? What strain are you going to get? Does the strain matter? How much should you take? What methodology of taking it should you partake in? That was a hard way of saying how should you eat it? How should you consume them? How should you drink them? These are all questions I hope to answer during this episode. Who should you hang out with? Where should you be? What should you do? What should you not do? If any of these answers are not given to you or not supplied to you by the end of this episode, I implore you to go down into the comments and let me know what I did not answer. I'm going to kind of go through, from my experience, which is a good amount of experience with psilocybin, what I've found successful and what I've seen successful with my friends in their endeavor to try psilocybin, their endeavor to try mushrooms, and how it's gone. So if you guys want to learn about smart ways, fun ways to take mushrooms and enjoy the experience and it not be too much of a daunting experience for you, be sure to stay tuned in. So today I have a bong with me. I'm gonna load this bong, and as I load this bong and smoke this bong, I'm gonna talk to you guys about my mushroom experience. So based off of what I told you guys earlier, the first step we're gonna start at, I even have notes. I have like 3-4 pages of notes written out, guys. This is something I've thought about for a while, but something that I'm just now getting written down and something I'm just now getting on camera. So first, the point I want to make is do mushrooms because you want to do them. Don't do mushrooms because someone else says you should do them. Don't do mushrooms because you feel like you maybe should do them. Especially, and this is when we're talking about that first time user. Guys, do them because you want to do them. Do not feel pressure to do it. Do not think somebody else is pushing you to do it. Anything like that. Because from my experience and for what I've seen with other people, that pressure is not going to make the experience enjoyable. If somebody feels like they're being forced to do anything, oftentimes that will impact the experience. And because mushrooms are pretty much inexplicable, I'm going to try to explain them a little bit later in this video, but since they're pretty inexplicable for somebody who hasn't tried them before, they can be kind of a daunting experience. So I would really just say, get your mind right to thinking, all right, this is something I actually want to do. This is something I want to partake in. This is something I want to eat. You know, mushrooms, guys, they're poison at the end of the day. You know, we're poisoning our bodies. That's essentially what they are, and that's how that reaction starts in our mind, you know, in our bodies and things like that. So at the end of the day, you have to remember that, and you have to remember, okay, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. So now that you've decided that it's what you want to do and it's a decision that you've made, where do you go? How much are they supposed to cost? In my experience, mushrooms cost between $10 and $15 a gram, which will come out to usually anywhere between $30 and $50 an eighth. And a lot of times this depends on the size of the city you're in, how much availability, the legality of them, where you're at. But in my general experience, that's what I have. That's what I've experienced. So when it comes to strains, you almost have to believe your dealer. We're kind of like in the age with mushrooms in a lot of senses like weed was back in the 90s, early 2000s, to where names are kind of just thrown around. And weed is kind of like that today still, but especially back then, to where people don't know what everything is. You have to trust your dealer, essentially. I actually do ask my dealer, all right, what do you have? In my experience, I found golden teachers, penis envies, and like Amazonians have been like kind of the most popular strains that I found, and I think that's really because those are the easiest for people to grow at home. But when you find out what strain it is and you hope that that is the true strain, go do your research, go do your due diligence and see what effects more than likely are going to come with those mushrooms. Because some of them, for example, I've had some Amazonians that really like get you more hyper. It's more like a weed sativa, you know. Then I've had some penis envies that absolutely slapped me. You know, I was like super wavy off of them hoes, and just a little bit too. And that's another thing. Some you need 3 grams to really feel that heightened effect. And I've had some where 1.5 grams get me pretty good. So when it comes to these different strains, I wouldn't worry that much, especially if you're gonna kind of like tiptoe into it, like I would suggest. And I'll get back into that later. But the strain for the first time isn't the biggest deal, but it is good to know if you can. So ask your dealer what strain this is, and then go do your due diligence and figure out how much you should eat, more than likely based off of what they've told you, and just some effects that you might be able to anticipate maybe based off of what you read online, because there is a lot of research done online about these different strains, about some of them, maybe not about all of them, but a lot of these strains have a good amount of podcasts and blogs done about them to where you can educate yourself. More than likely, you're not going to have a ton of options. You're going to go to your dealer and they're going to be like, all right, I have these, or maybe they have 2 options, but it's not like weed to where you're usually going to have like 6 to 8 strains, especially in like a legal state or something like that. So once you've kind of made that decision on what strain you want, now it's time to go buy them. So like I said earlier, typically I found that they're $10 to $15 a gram. I'm sure I'm going to get people in the comments that are like, my buddy that lived next door 6 years ago grew them in his house. He gave them to me for $7 a gram. You're lying. You know, I'm going to get some type of bullshit like that in the comments, I'm sure. But that's the price range that I'm generally accustomed to. And that's for, also, let me qualify, that's also for like loose mushrooms. You know, this is not to say the chocolate bars. I've also had it in like capsule form, like psilocybin capsule form. You can also get it in a powdered form to where people put it in like hot chocolate and different smoothies and stuff like that. So there's many different ways to intake it, which we're going to get to here in just a second. But I did want to qualify the fact that when I'm talking about that price range, I am talking about for 3.5 grams of loose mushrooms, not any type of altered form. Because sometimes the price can vary for certain chocolate bars and different types of snacks like that. So now it's time to eat them. Now you've gone to your dealer. Now you've picked out what strain you want. You've gotten the amount. You got your eighth for you and your eighth for. Now we get to this point. Who are you going to eat them with? I can make some loose suggestions based off what I've seen work. A lot of times if it's your first time, it's nice to do it with somebody who's done them before, especially if y'all both do something that you enjoy or y'all both have things in common. If you have nothing in common and you like the person, I mean, I don't know how you like somebody and you literally have nothing in common with them, unless you're maybe tripping with your mom or something like that. But when it comes to like the people you choose to trip with, make sure they're not just acquaintances. You know, I've tripped a couple times with the girlfriend of a friend, you know, and those trips don't go as well. Because if you don't like them, or if y'all are just like kind of okay, these trips a lot of times bring out a lot of deeper emotional things, you know, and you might not feel comfortable expressing those things in an arena or area with people that you hardly know, or especially ones that could potentially use information against you or something like that. So I would just say be wise about who you choose to trip with, and you can do it for the first time with somebody else who is their first time as well. As long as the vibes are good, I think that's good. And as long as you're not planning to drive, I do want to stick that in before this video gets too late. Never plan to drive. So many people trip and they're like, all right, I'll come down and then I'll drive home or something. And especially that first time, you need to plan for not doing anything for the next like 8 to 10 hours, you know? I think most of it's run its course in 6, but I still wouldn't think it's safe to drive after that time. In terms of like a couple, like 8 hours after you've had like a full trip for real, that's not, I would never encourage somebody to drive after that. So with that being said, choose who you trip with wisely. And if you guys want to go out and do stuff, make a plan. If you guys want me to make some videos about tripping experiences that I've had and stuff like that, because I've been out in public, you know, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in this video as well. That's the part that I just wanted to hint on right now, is choose who you trip with wisely. So now you're going to decide how you want to partake in them. You know, are you going to go get the chocolate bar? Or if you already... Okay, so we decided you didn't get the chocolate bar, you didn't get any powder, you couldn't find that shit, so you just got the regular shrooms, you know? So what do you do now with the shroom, like, stalks? That's what we're going to discuss next. So I'm going to give you guys a few different ways in which I have, like, eaten them. And some ways I would not suggest, some ways I would. The first way that I can really think of off the top of my head, I actually know I wrote some of these down, but would be literally to, like, stick it between some, like, fucking chips and stuff like that, and just eat it like that, with candy or stuff like that. I'm just eating it with candy, just mixing it all in your mouth. That's a terrible idea. I've done that on multiple occasions, but it's a horrible idea in terms of taste, and it might ruin the taste of that candy for you forever, like, because I've noticed sometimes I've eaten something while I was on mushrooms or with mushrooms or whatever, and I think my body paired the taste of that with the poison, like how alcohol does, you know? How if you drink peach vodka for a very long time, like, that peach flavor may not be good to you in any other juice again if your, like, body starts to reject it type shit. With mushrooms, since it is, like, essentially a poison, like I was telling you guys, that's how it is. You know, and as all narcotics are at the end of the day, and if you look at drug charge, mushrooms would in generally be the safest to choose from. But regardless, I'm not getting into that right now. But what I am saying is that that's a terrible choice. Don't mix it with chips and candy and stuff like that, because what will happen is those particles from the chips, Cheez-Its, candy, whatever, they're going to get stuck in your teeth. Those shrooms are going to get stuck under that, and for the whole entire trip, you're going to be picking that shit out of your fucking teeth, and you're going to be tasting mushrooms over and over and over again until that gets out of your teeth. So I would not suggest that method. Another method I have tried before is really, I mean, obviously it's just eating them. You know, just eating them, and some taste way worse than others. I was up in Wyoming one time with a friend, and I wanted to eat some before I went snowboarding, so I microdosed, you know, maybe half a gram to a gram, somewhere in there, pretty big cap or whatever. And these were penis envies at that time, and penis envies are called penis envies because they're, like, huge with, like, big tips on them, so they're, like, it makes sense why they're called that. But I ate it, and the taste was so bad, I, like, sprinted into the shop, bought, like, the nastiest cinnamon roll I've ever had out of this fucking ski resort in Wyoming. But the riding was amazing. Like, the snow was, like, floating and, like, sparkly and shit, you know, and Wyoming snow is so powdery. It was definitely, like, a magical experience, like, getting to ride like that, you know. But regardless, if you want to eat it, eat it. The taste is kind of like a nasty pistachio, in my opinion, like a non-salted, just like nastier pistachio. That's the best way I've ever been able to describe it to somebody. If somebody has a better way of describing the taste, please put in the comments below, but that's the best way I know how. Another way that people do it is with tea. They'll brew it in tea and put it in tea and stuff like that. Another disgusting method. Another way that I guess these are people that hold their nose and drink that shit or whatever. I think I may have tried that one time, but that's a horrible idea in my opinion. It's just terrible. It's so hard to drink it, and you probably get a good amount of it because you can put the lemon juice in there and really extract stuff out of there. But fuck all that. I'm telling you guys the best way to do it. If you guys like this, which I don't know who doesn't like smoothies, you can get a smoothie from the goddamn Smoothie King, whatever. You can make your own smoothie, put it in the blender, put the full shrooms in there, blend it all together, drink the smoothie, wait an hour and a half. By far the best way to take shrooms, if you like smoothies, which I don't know. I mean, I guess you could do it with like a milkshake technically or something like that, but I would not want to start a trip with a full-ass milkshake. Even a smoothie can get a little bit heavy, because I've had like a large, and you know how fucking Smoothie King cups have them damn cankles, you know, they literally look like a big ass cankle. It's a fat ass cup. By the time I finished that bitch, I was like, god damn, my stomach's full. And that wasn't a good feeling leading into the trip. Either way, I had a good trip, but regardless, just be careful of that. Get like a medium, you know, don't get that fucking XL down south killer. So now, how much do you put in the smoothie? This is all up to you, and this is the shitty part about having a smoothie, is that you kind of have to decide how much you want to put in it originally. You can always make another smoothie later, but who knows, if you're like half tripping, you might not be able to, I don't know, you might not be, or if you go back out, you might not be able to get one or something like that. You might not be able to go back out to Smoothie King and get one because you can't drive or something. I have no idea the situation. Like with everything else, you can always have more, so I would say start with like half a gram to a gram. That is just, do not quote me on that, do what's safe or do what you feel comfortable doing. Eat a cap, like a little bit if you want to, and also, guys, I do want to kill the idea that caps and stems have different amount of psilocybin. It's the same thing. So don't think that if you're eating a cap or eating a stem, like you're going to get equally as twisted. So just know that. When you're deciding effects, you maybe want to microdose your first time. It's not something that there are cases of overdose on, so I wouldn't worry about that. But the intensity and the longevity of how long it'll last will definitely be ramped up. I know some people who have just scaled it up. I know some people who have dove in 4 or 5 grams the first time. I know people who feel comfortable doing all types of different things. So do what you feel comfortable with when it comes to an amount. But I can tell you the best flavor, the best tasting way I've ever had is by putting it into a smoothie and blending that shit up. It's tough for me to give people effects for shrooms without mixing together a whole bunch of different drug adjectives. It makes your body feel like alcohol. It makes your mind feel like Adderall. It makes you be philosophical like weed. Like, it sounds dangerous when you say that shit. It makes you happy like perks. Like it makes it sound dangerous. So I hate giving descriptions like that when it comes to mushrooms, because they're not like any of those other substances. And even if they have some drawing comparisons, it makes them sound like unbelievably intense when you say that. So when it comes to effects, you guys will have to put in the comments below what you guys' effects are. For me, it all depends on what I'm doing. Like I said, be careful like if you're gonna drive or anything like that, but I can't suggest it. But I like to bike, I like to run, like I said, I've snowboarded, and those are some of the most exhilarating experiences of my entire life, I have to say. Just the feeling I get like from biking when I've been on some mushrooms, or running when I've been on some mushrooms, the freedom, the feeling of when I'm outside just on the street and stuff like that, the connection, the people around you, the stuff around you, the lights moving around you and stuff. It's a whole different energy than I've experienced in any other type of arena. I would suggest, if you plan on doing it multiple times, if you've done it before, to try different things. I know some people will be like, I can only sit on the couch when I do mushrooms. I'm like, you're fucking being lazy, or you're making an excuse, like if you took mushrooms and your first thing was to do was get on a bike and go somewhere, I promise you, your body would not just go into some type of shock, just lock out and not be able to ride the bike anymore. You'd be able to continue. It's just people are so used to doing certain things a certain way. Every time I smoke weed, I eat junk food. Every time I do this, I do that. Like, that's a choice that you're making every time. So I've hiked on them, I've ran on them, I've ran in like mountains on them. I've done all these activities, so I wouldn't say that shrooms can be put in a box and be said that they will make you lazy. Because I've also sat upside down on a couch playing UFC for 2.5 hours straight. I've also done that on mushrooms too. I've also sat and just watched and thought stuff was like swimming on the floor before too. So I've had a lot of different experiences to say that if you start taking mushrooms, like even I'm not even saying I take them regularly, we're saying like once every 6 months or something like that, maybe, unless more is called for, of course. Sometimes more is called for, but in general, it's not an often occurrence for me, but it is a different occurrence. It's a different situation every time, because depending on who you're with, depending on whether they're also tripping, depending on the situation, the context, the weather outside, whether you have access to going inside, outside, whether you feel trapped, whether you don't feel trapped, your personal mind state, all those things are going to impact how you feel, you know what I'm saying? But as long as you're going into it optimistic and like, I think I'm going to enjoy this, I think you'll be okay. So I wrote down a list that I'm just going to rant off right quick of things that I wrote down that like these are the don'ts of mushrooms. So don't be in a crunch for time. Don't be around associates, like people that aren't your friends, because they suck. Don't be trapped inside, unless like that's your thing, unless going outside isn't everything. But if you're someone who likes going outside, a lot of times mushrooms will kind of like pull you outside. So have an area to where you feel comfortable, like also being able to venture outside. I got to walk around the San Antonio Riverwalk one time, and it was a really fun experience, like seeing everything that was happening and getting to eat ice cream and shit like that, just having a good time, because I was in an area to where we could quickly get there. If you're gonna throw up and you feel sick, don't throw up too fast. Hold it in, like let the psilocybin kind of soak in, because you might just waste your $50 then, so just be careful with that. Bring weed if you're into that. If you like having weed, and pre-roll it, pre-roll or pre-pack a bowl maybe, stuff like that. Like get it ready, because you never know how hard simple tasks can be when you're doing mushrooms, I promise you. The normal habits that you usually do mindlessly are no longer going to be mindless. And for me, be okay being a little bit scared, because it's kind of how you learn about yourself. These mushrooms can open up a lot of things and teach you a lot about yourself, but you have to be like open to also figuring out some of the scary things, because we all have a little bit of darkness. We all have darker aspects and darker things in our lives that are going to get brought up a little bit if you're taking some psychedelics. But be open to the little bit of darkness that can peek through, because a lot of light can come through as well, and a lot of good revelation can also come through. I wrote here that we all have light and darkness. These are like the mushrooms are about being able to control and positively express both, like be able to like kind of laugh about the darkness and really be able to express your light, to be able to really help other people and shit. And mushrooms really connect you to other people. I think they're a pretty dope experience. It's not something like I'm saying that's like daily, anything like that for me. I don't want anybody to think that. I mean, if you do think that, I really don't care. But I'm just letting you know that this is something that kind of finds me when I need it. And now it's becoming a little bit different. It used to be like, all right, I found mushrooms when I needed them. But now, since like all weed dealers are selling mushrooms as well, it's kind of just a thing like, all right, I don't need that right now. I don't need that type of emotional detox right now. I don't need that type of introspective thinking right now. There's certain times I need it, certain times I don't. So if you guys decide that you need it, I hope this video helps you kind of discern that for yourself and kind of get through those first processes, because I know there's a lot of apprehension when it comes to mushrooms. But if you guys are interested in trying them, feel free to comment below. I can make tons of videos about them. I can probably make a lot of story videos about them as well, tell you guys some of my experiences. So I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with me. I know this is a completely different kind of video than I usually do, but on Fridays I try to be creative, try to do something different, and today this is what I want to talk about. As you guys try them, and if you're doing different activities and stuff like that, let me know what you're enjoying. I don't want to guide too much more, I guess, or give any too much more guidance, simply because it's kind of just for you to figure out. It's kind of for you to be open to. And if you're open to it, if you're open to the experience, if you're open to learning about the positive and negative aspects of your own life, I feel like you can greatly benefit from them, if that's what you want. This is not me pressuring anybody to do them, but this is just me giving my experience from me to you. So this has been GP with another episode of wherever you watch this. It's been fun hanging out with you, fun taking a couple bong rips with you. Didn't smoke too much, had a lot of shit to say. I'll see you guys later.